Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm as always your host, Brody Robertson, and today we are talking to Ryan Brue, the maintainer of the soon-to-exist Fedora COSMIC spin. Just correct me if I'm wrong, it's supposed to be a thing if all things go well with Fedora 42.
Yes, that's the plan, assuming everything falls into place and things are currently going pretty well. I assume it'll also depend on whether Cosmic actually releases on schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, so I guess just do a bit of a brief background on who you are and I guess why you wanted to do this.
All right, so I started my Linux journey at the end of 2023, so I'm actually pretty new to Linux overall. Uh,
Okay, sure. Yes,
yeah,
going from not
uh,
using it to doing the spin thing.
making a spin. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I recall in your video about the spin, you talked about like how I talked about it was my first time doing a mailing list and all that. That was just like a couple months into using Linux overall, so I just kind of
Okay.
jumped in. But I was in college at the time, and I'd used Linux sometimes for like classes, but never really daily drove it or put it on bare metal. So I was kind of it was kind of just a impulsive decision. I was like, well, I'm going to take my entire laptop and switch it over to Linux. I wasn't even going to dual boot. I just wanted to switch to Linux entirely. uh,
Mhm.
I was actually kind of convinced to do that by some contributors to the Godot engine because back then I was doing contributions to their project and I saw a bunch of people talking about Linux. I was like, hey, what distro would you guys recommend? What like spin or what desktop environment? And most of them there were like, definitely choose Fedora. When I told them the laptop I had like a kind of a newer gaming laptop at the time, and they're like, yeah, for the newest packages and everything, you want to go Fedora. Um, and they said, GNOME or KDE, either is fine. And I started out on GNOME actually.
Okay.
For the longest time, I was on GNOME, and I think I've just kind of switched around desktop environments ever since. I don't really stick on one for a whole long time, but uh, later on, I kind of got interested in the Rust programming language, and that became my language for basically everything I developed. And then I found out later that they were that somebody was developing a Rust-based desktop environment. So I was like, all right, I'm going to jump in on that. Uh, and
Well,
that
you would
was
have
back
just
when
been
Cos.
getting, yeah,
Oh,
you would
sorry.
have just been getting into Linux probably around about when they first started talking about it, I think.
Yeah, I think it was in development for a long time, but like no, nobody really talked about it until like the beginning of 2024,
Mm.
I'd say. Um, so around that time, I installed it on my machine, and everything kind of sucked with it. Gonna be honest, back then it was it was very bare bones, and I instantly found a lot of bugs. I wasn't able to connect to my school's network. That was like one of my first bug reports. I was like, yeah, I can't connect to enterprise networks for whatever reason. The panels were weird. I really hated the fact that whenever you set the panel to really small, the app icons were just really minuscule, and the dots were like almost the same size. Uh, so eventually, those issues kind of irked me enough to where I started contributing. And so one of the first things I tried to tackle was the enterprise Wi-Fi thing, and that was the only thing I tackled that I never really finished. So the app tray problem, though, I've kind of focused on the app tray for a long time, uh, and so I also implemented the touchpad gestures for like switching workspaces. Um, that was one of my favorite contributions because that uh, made me have to learn Rust in a way I'd never learned before, going into the compositor and everything. Um, and I think Power Profiles daemon support. That was like the last thing I contributed that's actually been merged like significantly. I have some like outgoing PRs that I haven't really had time to revisit for a while, but yeah. So I started contributing there, and since I was on Fedora and they didn't have like any Cosmic support at all, I was using an unofficial uh, Silverblue based image by
Mm, mm.
Draculix.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that was yeah, that was the first image I used, and I was already kind of a fan of the image-based operating system, so I just rebased to it, and I was like, wow, this is easy. But I found out that it was out of date whenever I tried switching over to it. It wouldn't boot at first, so I was like, okay, time to try and update this. It was only a couple months old, but they've been working on Cosmic nonstop. Uh, but yeah, I think you actually found the forum post where I talked about that for the first time. Somebody was like,
yeah, I probably did. I probably mentioned it a couple of times. I don't have the link at hand right now, but usually when I talk about something like this, I'll like try to dig back as far as I can get. If someone mentions a thing, I'm like, okay, where can I find that link? And usually that gets me back as early as I need to be. Or
Right.
you know, if it's a forum, sometimes you can see post history, things like that, and you can go back through earlier things people have said. So at the time, right now, you are the maintainer of the Fedora Copper Cosmic package. Was there any
Yes.
package for Cosmic at the time, or was it just that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, there was not. And honestly, making the packages was maybe one of the most frustrating experiences in Linux I've ever had. But it was very rewarding once I had that, because when we had the original like Silverblue images, we were just compiling Cosmic from source every time we would do the image build. And so I had it running daily on a GitHub action, but it was taking like 4 hours or so just to build everything in GitHub. And so about the time that I proposed making the SIG, which was another thing I did around that time, because people were showing interest, and I was like, I kind of want to be the change that I want to see in the world and actually get involved with that. So I made the proposal, got approval, made my matrix room, and a couple people joined, including Neil at the time. But he was just kind of generally interested in bringing up new spins. I think he was working on the Fedora Miracle spin, like a little bit later on as well. And he gave a lot of great advice for bringing up a spin. So he's been kind of my consultant throughout the whole thing. But the first step, of course, was to build packages. So yeah, that was, and I was still in school at that time. So whenever I was not working on school stuff, I was just working on RPM packages. It took about, oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
You're about to say something. Okay. So sorry, if I'm rambling, just stop me.
No, go. It's fine. It's fine. I was just gonna ask you about the process of making packages, but you might have gotten into that anyway.
Yeah. So it depends on your distribution, but RPM packages
specifically for Fedora, yeah.
Yeah. So my first set of packages did not conform to the Fedora guidelines at all. It was very far from it. But in a basic sense, all you need to set up is some metadata, like version, source URL for repository, and some build instructions and installation instructions. And then one thing that RPM has different from some other package managers is you have to actually specify which files are owned by the package. So you have to go in and find every artifact from your build, where it's installed, and list that in like a files section. So that's something that's kind of unique to that the Debian packages didn't have. So oftentimes I was referencing the Debian packages that Pop! OS was trying to put out, but that was one of the things I couldn't just bring over. But overall, it was fine. It wasn't too hard. The hard part was testing them after the fact.
Right. So I've talked a bit about the Fedora Copper before, and it's kind of, it's not exactly the same. It's kind of like Fedora's AUR, but it's not exactly the same, because my understanding is it's also build infrastructure as well as a way to access these packages.
Yes, it is. It provides building, hosting, and even in my it even facilitated Fedora review. Like I was able to just take the artifacts from there and put them into my review request.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to have that off my computer and on a centralized resource. I don't think I would have gotten this far if I had run it on my own computer.
Yeah, you did.
And especially,
You were
oh,
saying
sorry, go on.
4 hours on GitHub, so
Oh yeah,
yeah, building that would be yeah, a little rough.
it would be a chore, and also it was nice to have that set up to where I can just click rebuild all packages. And for a while, I just did that every day. Nowadays, I have a script that actually checks like whether the version has changed between the upstream, so I'm not building as many packages at once.
Mm-hmm.
But that's more of a recent thing. For like almost a year, I was just going in every day and clicking rebuild all packages manually. Uh, that is something that I've really enjoyed doing, is building all this automation around the entire process.
Mm-hmm.
I have the packages automated. Whenever there's a update in the Fedora repos, most of it is automated. I just build in a separate copper for tag packages, and then reference the latest build, download it, and then push it to the official Fedora repos and have it build there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all like a one-page Rust program. So it's nice. It's fun to have it all automated, but it means that over time I can kind of forget what I had automated in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you asked me to go back and reference how I did everything, I'd have to look through the code and be like, oh yeah, that's what I did there. That's what I did there.
Yep.
But yeah, it's
Yeah,
it was
I have a number of things in my life that are very much the same as that, where it's like, oh, I wrote this like 500 line Python thing a couple of years ago, and it's like, how does this work again? What did like I want to go and add some like new thing to them, like. Okay, now, after that point, it's kind of like looking at someone else's code, especially if you are improving as a developer. It's like, why did you write it like this? What is this?
Yeah. And after a while, you've learned so much about refining processes that you come back and you're like, man, I was terrible at this.
Yep.
I mean, I look at some of that Rust code from when I tried to first automate my package building, and I was like, no, I short of rewriting it, I'm just gonna leave it as it is. If it's doing its thing and it's not broken, I don't want to touch it again.
Mm-hmm. So what is it that?
Can we?
Go on.
Sorry.
Yeah. No,
Before
go
the
on.
next question, can we cut for a second? My monitor is my second monitor is frozen, and I'm just gonna unplug it. I've been trying to open Firefox, and I was like, why is it not working? And then I move my mouse over to my other monitor, and I'm like, wait, it's not showing up there. Oh great, now this monitor's frozen.
Are we gonna have to like pause?
I'm just gonna pause for just a second. Let me unplug all this stuff. It's NVIDIA, I swear to God.
Oh.
Okay. Man, why did I do that? Okay. And here I am thinking that KDE is stable. So this cable connects to that monitor, so it should be working. But now now it's just frozen.
Oh.
Okay, you mind if I reboot my computer real quick?
Go right ahead.
I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about, what was it, like packaging?
Yeah, the process of getting the packages built, and I went on a tangent about my automations. That's more of the modern day stuff. But yeah, so making the packages, it took me about like a week of just solid. Every time I got home from school, I was just working on the packages, and I would kind of document my progress in the SIG chat. But there wasn't very many people there at the start, so it was mainly just for my own reference and for anybody who was kind of interested in that. But yeah, once I got the copper packages up, I started building them daily, and I set up a I switched over my like atomic image to using those copper packages.
Hmm.
And actually, around that time, Jorge Castro from Universal Blue was like, "Hey, I've seen what you've done with like the cosmic atomic image. Would you like to move that over to Universal Blue?" And I was like, "Sure." I thought that was really cool, and it'd be nice to collaborate in that way. So now the my original atomic image is now part of Universal Blue. That's been maintained over there for a while, but I think later on in the future, once the actual atomic image comes out, we're going to just deprecate that image.
Right.
But yeah, it's been talked about that maybe we might want to make like a what's it called, a bluefin like experience for Cosmic. So that may happen in the future, but I don't know. Depends on if there's interest.
So what is it about? Obviously, you were saying that like you like the fact that it was a Rust desktop, with a Rust desktop coming up. But like, what is it about Cosmic that drew you to it besides that? Because you could make a Rust desktop and it could be garbage and no one ever wants to touch it. But like, is there anything about what the desktop was doing at the time, their vision for the desktop, or anything like that that made you want to stick around with it?
I think kind of the silliest thing that I was really interested in was the panel customization. I liked that no matter who I saw using Cosmic, they all had different panel configurations, and that seemed to be something that was heavily prioritized was customization. Uh, and I know that like KDE Plasma has customization, but it's kind of hard to access. I mean, there's a lot of settings, and being able to customize your setup quickly is kind of a thing I like to do. I mean, I switch desktop environments all the time. I switch configurations all the time. So I like that Cosmic was, aiming to be able to provide all those customization things quickly and easily. So that was, I guess, one of the other things other than it being Rust. But I'm going to be honest, I'm very much a Rust shill. So that was kind of my primary thing was like, I like that they're building up the desktop Linux stack in Rust because we have like the Rust kernel stuff going on. We have more of that in the lower level, but there wasn't a lot in the graphical range of things. Like they're they're building Cosmic Comp, which is set to be one of my favorite compositors once they iron out some more issues. And just Iced in general is a really good graphics stack, and for a while I was using that for some of my my personal projects that never really saw the light of day. But I don't know, I just like Rust, and it was fun to contribute to, and felt nice to be a part of that. I haven't really been able to contribute that much recently, just because after college I got a day job, and every time I come home I'm just kind of tired, and I'm like, okay, what can I maintain that I've built, and haven't really thought about doing any new things. But yeah, I know you say that a lot in your videos, that open source contributors oftentimes, if they're not working on it full time, then you're losing out on a lot of people who could contribute.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who would really like to work in open source, but just now, like, there's just not the work there. Like, you just don't have that many open positions, and the ones that are open, there are people that are very experienced to fill them. It's not like you're getting, it's a bit different from, trying to get a job at some big tech company like Google, where there's thousands of employees.
Yeah.
It's a different problem where there's not many people, but everyone who's trying to get it is very skilled, and because it's like you're going to get less pay working at, getting contract work at KDEV or doing work at System 76 is not going to be like that top-end developer pay. The people who want it are very dedicated to wanting to work in this space.
Yeah, it's a high skill ceiling just because everybody who does open source, I imagine, would love to do that. I mean, I'd love to do it. I know that in like the late spring when I was graduating from college, I actually did reach out to System 76, and I was like, hey, you guys have any job openings ever? Just let me know. I don't think since then they've had a software engineer opening, which is it just kind of shows that you know they have to kind of remain small because they're working on something that's free with the Cosmic desktop. And it always amazed me in general just how they end up turning a profit. I know it's all in their hardware, but it's very awesome that they actually dedicate time to something that's completely free with the Cosmic desktop.
Well, I see people
of...
talk about sorry about that. So
No, that's okay.
I see people talking about Cosmic being, developed by System 76. It's developed by a company, but they don't realistically have that many paid engineers working on it. I think it's like 4 or 5. Like, it's really not that many people.
Yeah, it's Michael, Ashley, Jeremy, Victoria. Honestly, that might just be it. It might just be those 4. But yeah, that very small amount of people, and they're able to build an entire desktop in just a couple of years. Granted, they've had external contributors, but it's one of those things where it's 90% them. So.
Yeah, of course. Like, every project is gonna have external contributors, but you've seen, if you go to any big GitHub project, you're gonna see the person who started the project and it's 10,000 commits, second place, 500. It's there's going to be this massive drop off in pretty much everything. There are very few projects that have active contribution from more than, even more than one person, but sometimes you'll see a project be handed off WL Roots, which got handed off from Drew DeVault to Simon Sir. But GNOME, for example, or KDE is a massive exception where you have lots and lots of active contributors.
Yeah. And I mean, I could nerd out about KDE as well because I think it's my second favorite desktop behind Cosmic. It's definitely my favorite stable desktop, and it's actually the one I daily drive most of the time because as a working man, I can't really tinker with a semi-working desktop most of the time. But once Cosmic is fully stable, I'm going over there just to dog food because I need to be sure that any bugs I see there I can resolve on the Fedora end. So,
do you have a secondary machine that you run Cosmic on, or?
I do, yeah. I have a an old 2-in-1 that I run Cosmic on. I sometimes will run Cosmic on my NVIDIA machines to varying degrees of success, but I think over even the past year and a couple months that I've been on Linux, I've seen the NVIDIA support just go from almost nothing on Wayland to basically fully supported, and it's really cool to see. I know that
you joined at a really good time because you joined at the tail end of things being bad, just as NVIDIA started actually caring about doing things on Linux.
Absolutely. How long have you been using Linux for?
I want to say about 4 or 5 years.
And are you still in college or are you graduated now?
I graduated. Yeah, I'm not doing YouTube full time, but pretty much full time. I still have a second job, but how long that sticks around, we'll see. We'll see when I feel like getting rid of it. For right now, it's not. Well, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's a bit of extra money.
Yeah. It's exciting to think about going to YouTube full time, though. I bet.
It's definitely weird.
Yeah.
My parents are always like, "Hey, when are you gonna get a job?" Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, you're like, this is my job. I mean, yeah. I remember there was a time when I did YouTube back in high school, but I could never have called that a job. I got very into a mobile game called Geometry Dash. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes, I'm aware of Geometry Dash.
Yeah, I was big in their community. I was actually the owner of their forums. I was what they called a moderator, which is somebody who can send levels directly to the game's creator. But yeah, after a while, I just got kind of bored of it, and I kind of ghosted that entire community. I feel kind of bad about that, but
okay, sure. It's always fun when I bring people on, and it's just I get some random lore that wouldn't be obvious from what they do now.
Yeah, it's very different. And the only difference between my username now and in Geometry Dash is I added an X to the end. I was Ryan AB. So if somebody who plays Geometry Dash happened to see this, then they'll be like, oh, that's the guy whose levels I've been playing. I used to be in the top 100 creators in the game, but yeah, that ship
Just,
has sailed.
just as like a random side example, last week I had the developer of I don't know if you know about this project, but it's a very fun project, Buttplug.io. It is an open source open source library for controlling butt plugs and other sex toys. The guy who makes it is an ex-Mozilla developer. And was there at Mozilla when they were doing Servo. Doing Servo, doing Firefox OS, worked on Second Life at one point. Like, it's always fun to just get these, like, random bits of lore from people.
Yeah, there's one thing I know about, like, open source. It's, you get all kinds of people. It's really cool to see, though. It's like, it's nice that we all treat each other with respect, regardless of any sort. Oh, sorry.
No, my camera just lost focus. It's fine. There we go. Yes? Okay, we're good now. Cameras are weird.
Well, that's good that happened then, because I actually didn't know where I was going with that. So,
so what are your thoughts on Cosmic in the state it's currently in? Because I've been going back to it with my streams every couple of weeks, every month when the new alphas come out, and things have been getting better. There have been new weird esoteric bugs, but what I've noticed is going from the early alphas to where we are now, it's getting harder and harder to find the bugs. Because early on, you could find some real simple ones that just, you would run into if you were just casually using Cosmic. Now it's becoming a lot of things where you have to intentionally do something stupid for something to appear, which makes sense, right? Because the developer who's working on it, they're going to test it in a way that they assume someone is going to use it. And if you do something the developer doesn't even think that you can do, it's very possible there's a bug there. One of the things that I reported the other week is, I think someone else had already reported it, but doesn't matter. If you opened up that side menu that had the the icon settings, if you didn't in the settings menu, if you didn't close that and then clicked on an option in the sidebar to go to another part of the settings, that window would stay open. And would just sit over something else, right? They expect you to close it first and then go to it. But there's just things like that, or I think it's when you press Super X, if you drag a window, the desktop just crashes, which is fun.
I mean, I definitely fall into that trap of when I have my workflow on a certain desktop environment, I don't switch from it. And, I think as Cosmic was being brought up, since I was using it in its earliest phase, I have a very specific workflow when it comes to Cosmic that is basically bug-free. There was that AMD freezing bug, though, that caught me. Where if you maximize a window, the whole thing will just freeze. And that's unfortunately still a problem. I've had people coming to me like, "Oh, how do I fix that?" There's a environment variable to disable direct scan out, which is what I've pointed people to.
Cosmic _ disable _ direct _ scan out equals 1 is what you want to set.
Yep.
I think it's on the Arch Wiki, if I recall correctly. Maybe.
The Arch Wiki is a great resource, I swear. Even as a Fedora user, I use Arch Wiki all the time. That's one of the things I heavily respect about Arch, is that everybody's put together this huge knowledge base of oh, you have this problem, do this. And most of the time it'll work across distros with some modifications. If it requires you to install a AUR package, you might have to look for a copper, or if it's in official Fedora repos. But
But what you're saying about our workflow set, that's the reason why I do the streams. It's so I can have a bunch of people telling me hey, try this out, see what happens, and just a bunch of different workflows all coming together, or just people who enjoy breaking things. They want to they came across a bug themselves, or they limit tested something and want to show that it's actually a bug. Just getting all those voices together to try to work out what the problems are, like, that's how you can actually make things improve. Because you can write tests and you can test things yourself, but unless you know what bugs you're looking for, it's going to be hard to find the bugs.
Right, yeah. And so bringing those to the developers who, they have their workflows, they don't know what's going on. That's definitely caused a rapid shift in the quality of Cosmic. Especially like once
I do
the
appreciate
alpha
that a lot of
started
other
coming
people
out.
have like. I do appreciate a lot of other people who also started like reporting bugs as well. Because I remember early on with the alphas, you would see like 10 bug reports in a row from me, and there'd be nothing else there from a lot of other people. But it seems like as the alphas have been progressing, there's been a lot more people involved in like not even just like trying to break it, but just trying out Cosmic.
Yeah. It showed people that it's in a state where they're ready to at least present it to power users. And I don't know when the beta is going to be, but I imagine that'll also bring up a lot more bugs. There'll be people who expect full release quality at that point, and they'll go in and find some bugs. And honestly, I think that's a great way. I don't know what I'm doing with that. Forget about it. I lost my train of thought. But,
so my understanding is Carl seems to think. I think he was saying like a March full release, which is so insanely aggressive.
I don't buy it.
No.
Yeah. Sorry, Carl. And I know that they've pushed deadlines back before. So I imagine they'll probably do something like that again. I know that there have been people asking in the Pop OS chat, like, when is the first beta coming out? And they're like, well, there will at least be an Alpha 6. But at this point, once we have Alpha 6, it's already February. So that March timeline is looking non-existent at this point.
And there's no way they're doing just a single beta. There'll be at least a beta too.
Oh, yeah. And that does make me kind of worry a little bit for the Fedora spin. But I noted in the change proposal that I'd still like to consider moving forward, even with it being in beta potentially. But we'll have to see how that goes. I don't think anybody would mind if we updated to stable as soon as that came out in Fedora 42. So we could release initially with beta and then maybe provide an upgrade there, assuming beta is stable enough for like the install and the initial, setup and all that.
Right, because you made another good point there about beta, where people are going to assume it's stable, so there's going to be a lot more people that try it, and with more people trying it, that's going to be more weird setups that people are using, weird use cases people have, and like one of the things that I ran across was really dumb is you can in the panel settings you can drag the maybe they fixed it now. You could drag the panel icons out of the window, and they were just gone. They were still in the panel, but they wouldn't come back until you reloaded it. Or because the panel applet is a file manager. I reported this bug. This is a fun one. Yeah. So if you drag an applet into your browser, it tries to download the desktop file connected to the applet.
That is something I remember for a long time they were working on drag and drop. That's like a huge feature that took them months. I imagine that there's a whole slew of bugs with it.
The desktop is a drop target.
Yeah, desktop's a drop target. App tray is a drop target. Obviously the applet settings are as well. I trying to think if there are any other drop targets in Cosmic that I know of.
Would you know what's not a drop
Cosmic
target?
Files, but what?
The media player. You can't drop things in the media player.
Interesting. Yeah. That was another thing. Whenever Alpha 5 came out and Jeremy was like, Cosmic Player is ready to be packaged, I was like, I don't know. It doesn't look like it's ready yet.
It builds. It works. You can play video.
Yeah, it builds. You can play videos. Is the experience really quality? I don't think so. I need to double check this, but I think the media controls weren't even finished at that time. Like, I think it just had play, but I may be wrong about that.
It had them when I tested it, so they might have added it in later commits.
Yeah, they did do a 5.1 release because
Mhm.
they found a bunch of memory leak problems that
Yeah.
they were able to fix.
Well, also,
Um,
Cosmic was just using way too much memory. From my understanding, there was some issue with Iced where
mhm.
I don't know the specifics, but it was using like double the amount of memory it should have been using, which was
Yeah,
very
I
noticeable.
know that some of that was in Cosmic Text,
Mhm.
which I think it's interesting. It's like one of their biggest projects on their entire organization,
Mhm.
and it's used by more than just Iced. It's used by like I think Zed used it for a time. I don't know if they've switched recently, but I think Bevy used it for a bit
Mhm.
for their text rendering. But it was always interesting to me that out of all the things System 76 has made, that ended up being the most popular like product that they make,
Mhm.
at least on their organization. But yeah, they fixed a memory issue with that and ended up just updating every Cosmic app, and then they're like, all right, we're putting out a new release. This was you know a really good thing to add, worthy of a release.
Well, I think that
So
that tag release also fixed the iced window resizing, where if you resize the window, it would resize at like 3 FPS.
oh yeah, they had to like throttle resizing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they implemented some other tricks that came from Neri, I believe. So we actually take quite a bit of inspiration from Neri. I remember whenever I was working on the touchpad gestures,
Mm-hmm.
Draculix just said, "Ask Yalter, who's the developer of Neri, ask them, I guess, ask them if we can use their like animation for workspace switching." Uh, and it's kind of funny. It was a chain of inspiration. It was we got inspired by Neri, which actually got those animations from GNOME, which I believe got inspiration from some other project that I can't remember for the life of me. But I just thought it was funny at the time that we had
Mm-hmm.
like four four simultaneous implementations of the same workspace switching animation. So if Cosmic's workspace switching ever seems like GNOME, that's because it is.
Yeah, for better or worse, there's a few issues that I've noticed that are kind of gnome
Oh
that
yeah.
like
Uh,
like there's a few issues with the way dynamic workspaces spawn, which are a problem. Like I've reported all of these problems where sometimes they just don't delete themselves, or you
mhm.
can get them to spawn in ways that shouldn't happen. Um, yeah,
Yeah. I think I reported one a while back. If you just start the session, it has really weird behavior with the dynamic workspace.
mhm,
Normally, you're supposed to have like two workspaces at the time, your main one and then the extra one. But because there's no windows in the first workspace, it doesn't like initialize the second one properly.
mhm.
And in order to get to that workspace, you actually have to swipe the opposite direction for some reason. I don't know why,
Okay.
but that was how it was at the time, and I think it's still the case. But I'd have to go back and test. There was also an issue that I actually knew about when I was making the initial PR for the workspace gestures, where if you kind of spam the gesture over and over, the
Mhm,
workspace will like jump back and forth instead of actually moving.
mhm.
But I don't think that was deemed a blocker for the initial PR because it was already significantly better than not having those.
Right.
And that was back in like April of last year, so it was before they even had the alpha. And I think, you know, there were priorities, and they didn't really make that a priority to fix it. But
Yeah, yeah.
you can still do that. So if you
I
just spam the gesture.
I don't know if this is still a problem, but last time I checked, if you open the window overview and then click on the empty workspace, and then open the window review again, you have an extra workspace, and you can just keep clicking on the final one and just making new ones. But because
Yeah.
they don't have windows on them. So what I think is happening is it's treating the window overview as a window, so it spawns
Hmm.
an additional workspace after it. Because I know it treats the launcher as a window. There's a few things that
Yeah.
shouldn't be treated like windows that cause an extra workspace to be spawned. So I think that's what's happening. But because there's no window on there after you go back to it, if you swap to that workspace, it realizes there's no workspace there, so it deletes the workspace.
Yeah. I think I wonder if the solution would be to because you can set like some kind of property on your desktop file that
Mhm.
makes it not show up in like app launchers and stuff.
Mhm.
And that's what I believe they use. So maybe for Windows that are attached to that kind of app ID, maybe they just need to not create a new workspace for those.
Yeah,
But I wonder if that'll cause any other weird issues with
almost
Windows that
certainly.
are, I don't know. But that's just my musing about a potential fix for that issue. But workspaces has been a weird part of Cosmic for a while.
Mhm.
It didn't get a lot of love until very recently. Oh, that's the fifth person I was thinking of.
Mm.
Ian Douglas Scott. He's the fifth one working on Cosmic, but he's been working on Cosmic Workspaces more recently, and he updated Iced, which added a lot of improvements. He fixed a lot of drag and drop things. Uh, Now whenever I use it, I don't see a weird issue where like if the window title is too long, it kind of just makes it into a column where each letter each letter is on its own row. That I had that issue for a long time, but I don't see it anymore, so I assume that was fixed.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I'm very glad that Workspaces is getting a lot of love because a lot of my workflow back when I used like GNOME was opening the workspace, switching around, and I kind of want to recreate that workflow in Cosmic.
Well,
But
honest,
also
honest,
having like a bottom bar, like
yeah.
sorry, go
I was
on.
gonna say, honestly, most of the problems with workspaces come from the fact that they're doing dynamic workspaces.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
if it was just
I don't
static,
know.
if it was static, half the problems of them just spawning weirdly and all this stuff just they wouldn't exist anymore. I
Oh yeah.
know I'm not a fan of this, but there's a shift in the direction of what they're going to do with that. They, at least at this stage, are not doing static. At least, it's going to be like
Yeah,
a
I heard
modified
about that.
dynamic where you can like pin them.
Yeah, that's a weird thing to me. I kind of wish they would just do static. It almost feels like just being different for the sake of being different.
Well, I like the
Uh,
idea as like an extension to dynamic. Like if you want to have it there, you can pin them. Like I think that's
yeah,
cool, but
yeah,
it's
that sounds
not a
like added
replacement for
functionality.
static.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like in the settings you should be able to have static and dynamic, and then in the workspace overview you should be able to pin workspaces.
Yeah, yeah, I think that
I
would be
think
cool.
that that would be a good. Yeah, uh, I agree. I forgot what else I was gonna say, but it was something about workspaces and oh yeah, I have another PR open that
Mm.
hasn't hasn't got a lot of attention yet, but over time, like if it doesn't get figured out before release, I'm gonna ping them. It's a gesture configuration
Do you remember
PR. It actually
what number it is or where I can find it?
so there's one in Cosmic Comp and one in Cosmic Settings Daemon because it's a two-part
Okay.
PR. The first PR was actually made back in March, and I updated it only recently. So I'll just post in the chat.
Ah, easy.
This is the Cosmic Comp one. Basically, you know how, actually, I don't know if any other desktop environment has configurable gestures, but I want,
How configurable were we talking? 'Cause I think KDE you can like choose between a couple of options, and GNOME you can definitely
yeah,
choose a couple.
I remember Neil talking about wishing that you would be able to change the workspace switching over to three fingers in KDE. Apparently, there's some kind of legacy code that keeps that
That
from
probably
being
some
worked
X11
out.
code. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would just take a lot to actually fix that. So,
Hmm.
uh, but you know, that's something I wanted for Cosmic because I don't really like their default of four fingers to switch workspaces.
Hmm.
I'm always used to three. So I made this PR back then, and Draculix was like, any reason we don't put this in like the existing like actions for like keyboard actions? And I
Hmm.
was like, that'd be a great idea, but it will require like, you know, some structural changes to happen before I continue with the PR. And that was actually some changes that Michael was already going to work on.
Hmm.
So he finished that, but I never got around to finishing the PR.
Right.
And then I think like maybe a month ago, I was like, all right, I'm gonna come back to this. So I finished up the PR and haven't heard anything since. But also, it is an old PR, and I'll probably have to just ping them eventually about it.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, uh, priorities as always.
Sure,
They
yeah.
have a lot more. They have a lot more egregious things to fix before getting gesture configuration. So.
Yeah, the desktop crashes are a lot more important than making sure
Oh yeah.
gestures work exactly the way you want them to.
Yeah. There was somebody in the Pop OS chat who asked about like, oh, when are you going to add the frosted glass effect? And it's like, this is important for first release. And I was like, I don't think that's important for first release.
No.
I'd rather them fix the other issues they have first. And you know, I think they're even going to have to wait on like a new Wayland protocol, the Blur protocol. I don't know if you covered that before, but it's
No.
it's been in limbo for about a year, and actually, I noticed it. Somebody bumped the thread recently and was like, "Hey, is there anything
From a
going
KDE
on with this PR?"
person?
Yeah, uh,
Huh.
I
Oh,
don't have
yeah,
it on my
yeah,
list.
Zava mentioned it in a PR recently.
Yeah, this is an aside, but I actually have like a giant software wish list of like a bunch of issues and PRs and stuff that I'd like to
Oh, yeah, here we go. Here's a bump from
see
Zava. Yeah, I see
completed.
it.
Okay, can you send the link so that I can look at it too?
Yes, here.
I want to see what the status is of that.
Got some comments on here from Zava and Draculix, and that's as of 2 days ago.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Draculix responded. Cool. Yeah, she, she'll implement that as soon as the protocol gets supported and actually merged. But in the meantime, there's actually a blur support in Winit and Iced. Well, maybe not Iced. In libcosmic it is, but I think that's patches on top of Iced.
Right.
So they well, I lost my train of thought again. Okay. It was Ed Flores. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably the one I see the most when it comes to external contributions to Cosmic. Maybe after that, a guy just named Git Fox.
Yeah. I've
He's
spoken to Get
often
Fox a bunch of
yeah
times.
yeah he's been there since the start as well. I remember talking to him when I first got into Cosmic. So he's been there for a while. And actually it's really interesting because at first he would talk about issues and I'd be like, maybe you should try fixing it. Like this might be an opportunity to like learn some Rust. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I can learn Rust and all that. And nowadays he's just submitting PR after PR. Like he's gotten good at it. So I feel like he doubted himself for a while, but that's I guess an inspirational story. If anybody wants to contribute, you can you can do it, even if you don't think you can learn Rust. It's not so bad after you get through the learning curve.
Well, also with the project being in alpha, a lot of the it's not like the lowest of low hanging fruit that has been like this is still there, right? A lot of those very simple problems have been dealt with, but it's not a project that's like we're not talking GNOME where it's been around since 1999 or KDE since
Yeah.
like 98, where you have this like almost 30-year legacy code base where stuff was written where some parts of the code haven't changed in maybe 15 years, and trying to wrap your head around making a change to that is going to be a lot harder than something that is still there's still these relatively easy problems to address.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually originally tried to contribute to KDE. There was a bounty on an issue. I didn't do it because of the bounty, but I wanted the issue as well. And it was dynamic workspaces. I don't know if you like or dislike them, but
I
I
like
wanted to
them as an
bring that
option.
workflow to
I don't
KDE.
use them.
Yeah, it wouldn't be something. Obviously, with KDE, it'd be an option disabled by default. But
Yeah.
so I started looking around, and it didn't take long for me to just get into a maze of different projects. And I'm like, well, where's the original place where like workspaces are defined? And yeah, that I probably should have asked for more help because I just kind of got lost and was like, okay, I'm not doing this. I'm bored. But I like that with Cosmic, it feels more accessible at the moment because there isn't all that legacy stuff and everything is clearly defined, like where it is. Maybe that's just because I've been around the project a lot, but I kind of know where everything is. At least like if you are looking at workspaces, that's in Cosmic Workspaces. In KDE, if you're looking for workspaces, I don't know. there's a KDE Workspaces repo, but that's kind of the overarching repo for the core desktop components. It's kind of like the superset of KDE Desktop and KDE Mobile. So I don't know. It's confusing naming. I like that everything's kind of laid out easily in Cosmic.
This is one of the things I've talked about that Cosmic can do really well that isn't really possible with a legacy project. Cosmic can look at what KDE, what Mate, what GNOME, what Budgie, what XSC, and all of these other projects have done, and and instead of replicating the same mistakes they made, 10, 15 years ago, start from the fact that this is a solved problem. Basically build off of the backs of giants,
stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, stand on the shoulders of giants.
I saw that all the time at Google Scholar. That was like the thing that showed up whenever you're searching for research papers. But yeah,
importantly, you can also structure a project in a more sensible way. Because, again, GNOME and KDE both started in the late 90s. And this... Okay. People did not know how to structure software projects in the late 90s, right? Like, let's be honest about it. And by the time people realized, hey, maybe things should be structured in a better way, changing the structure of something like KDE or GNOME in 2010, by that point it was way too far gone. Like you were not going to be able to change anything with a complete refactor of the project, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. So if you can start with, hey, workspaces are done here, compositing is done here, and you can make it so it's maintainable a lot longer into the future.
Yeah, having everything in components is nice. That's kind of in contrast to GNOME Shell, which really, for the entire desktop environment, the two main components are just Mutter and GNOME Shell. Everything's in there. And, I mean, I can appreciate that it kind of makes everything trim. I think GNOME is very, like, their philosophy is kind of keeping everything trim and clean, and they don't want to add what they deem as unnecessary things. I think that can go to a too far extent most of the time, but I like that philosophy. I think that Cosmic does take some inspiration from GNOME in that aspect, but I think they realize that, especially with stuff like Wayland protocols, that you need to play ball with everybody and implement what everybody else is implementing. So I think that was actually one of my biggest initial draws to Cosmic was the fact that it was kind of like GNOME, but it had panels by default. A lot of people in GNOME like to add the dash to dock and dash to panel, and I did that for a while. But then if something would break, people would just blame me for using dash to dock. It's like, have you tried using no extensions whatsoever? I'm like, I get it. I get that they like having this core model with extensions, but I've never really liked that as far as organizing projects goes.
Yeah, I've talked about this a couple of times before, but if you have an extension that has 10 million downloads, that shouldn't be an extension. Like that.
Oh yeah. Agreed. Dash to dock, I think, is the biggest offender. I would say that Blur My Shell is also a pretty common one, but there are genuine accessibility issues with that. But some people just want.
Is that 8 points? Oh, it's only 8.7 million downloads. Oh, sorry.
Oh, only okay. Wow.
Only 8.7 million.
How many Linux users are there again? No.
Yeah, I don't know how the GNOME extension counts downloads, if it counts updates as a separate download or what it actually does. Either way, it's a lot of downloads.
And people destroy and recreate their systems all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that for the longest time I couldn't go like a month without like re like wiping my entire drive and trying out a new distro or a new configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've really stabilized on Fedora Kinoite, and whenever Cosmic becomes stable, I'm gonna go to Fedora Cosmic, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice. It's always nice to try new things, and I tried like OpenSUSE. I'll say that I tried Arch, but I found that the setup was pretty complicated, and I was like, I'm not going to deal with this. Like maybe I'm not like a power user
Sure.
for saying that, but but I don't know. I did try KDE Linux though, the new image based distribution that KDE is trying to push, or not trying to push, but trying to develop. Uh, I don't know if you've heard much about that. That's
Not since the like early talks of it.
yeah. I'm in their Matrix group. They're still developing it, and I did some like small contributions there. Just like small issues that I found.
Mm-hmm.
I One of my PRs was just to change their boot logo. Like the Plymouth boot logo was like this really old like KDE. I guess back in the day they had this wizard mascot, and they had like this reference image of a KDE wizard. Let me see if I can find it. KDE wizard.
Oh,
Oh, Kendall. Yeah, it's Kendall. I need to.
what is this thing?
Yeah, so that was the boot logo for a while. And I was like, let's change it to the official KDE logo.
Yeah. I thought that was like an Image Magic logo for a second. Wait, what is the Image Magic logo? It's very similar to that.
Yeah. I think it's probably a little more charming of an image
Yeah.
than this. Yeah. Image Magic is definitely a cuter wizard. But yeah, I don't know. I think Harold, the guy who was working on it, was just like, for development purposes, I'm just gonna put an image here, and
Mhm.
might as well call back to Candolph or Kendolph.
I'm gonna have to look into that one. I had no idea that was ever a mascot they used. Like, because obviously the
Yeah.
main one they put forward is Conky.
Yeah. Conky is a pretty good mascot, I feel like. I think in terms of like, I mean, Gnome has the foot. Like, I feel like Conky is way better than that.
There's a lot of jokes that people have made about Gnome and feet because of that one.
Yep. It's just low hanging fruit. Like you got to go for it. I do remember a while back a video you made about the Gnome Circle logo and it being like associated with
That was
something that
so stupid.
I had never heard of that before, and I was like, okay,
How old are you?
am I ready to be traumatized? I'm 23, so but
Okay,
I did
okay.
not. I didn't do any of the like live leak or going out and looking at YouTube videos that are like. I do remember somebody referencing like a jar video. Was that actually that wasn't the Gnome Circle thing,
No,
was it?
that's
But
a different one.
the jar video is different.
There's a number of
Yeah,
videos.
there is a number of videos. But man,
So
yeah, I have some friends. Sorry, go on.
you no, go on. I was gonna talk about something else.
I have some friends who are just fully in on the internet rabbit holes. Like, actually, my girlfriend is a pretty bad offender for that. She watched an entire documentary on Chris Chan. Have you heard of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you remember who made the documentary? Because I feel like I know that there's only.
Let me see. Chris Chan. I mean, there was like 50 episodes or something. If that gives any
Oh,
indication.
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
went to the modern day. Like,
Mhm.
she actually said that she didn't think she could continue to the modern day just because it was too recent.
Mhm.
Like, it's easy to think of these things as in the past, but he's
Yeah.
or they, I don't know. They're still struggling.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know how we got on this. But,
I'm not really sure, but you were talking about KDE there. So, what are your thoughts on KDE becoming an official Fedora edition, moving up from being just a spin?
yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. As my daily driver, I definitely think that it's something that is stable and everyone should be using if they like, more Windows style desktops, which
Hmm.
I think I tend to. Um, and I think that Neil especially has put in a lot of work into the KDE spin, and there's a lot of other people in Fedora KDE that are working hard, but I think it's getting what it deserves. It should have been a desktop option, like a main option for the longest time.
Hmm.
I will say, actually, the reason why I started with GNOME originally was because I thought that Fedora KDE was less supported because it was a spin. I was like,
Right.
I'm going to go with the official, what's the default, all that stuff. And I think that a lot of people may not like that workflow, but they may still want something that's default.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think that this is a good niche for them.
Yeah, I do think there is probably a lot of people that have bounced off of Linux after trying one of the whatever distro it is, whether it's Ubuntu, whether it's Fedora, trying the
Mhm.
main thing. It's GNOME. It's this weird, like it's not like impossible to use, but it's weird. It's different. It's not like
Yeah,
Windows. It's not like Mac. It's like its own different thing. And for the people that like it, like that's great. More power to you. But
yeah.
I do think having a flagship, more traditional desktop option is just a good idea. And
Hmm.
it, like, my understanding is Fedora KDE has been basically run like an edition anyway. Like, this is pretty much just a marketing
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, it was always a release blocker for the longest time. At least I think for as long as I've been using Linux, it's been a release blocker. So like if something's wrong with QA with Fedora KDE, then they'll actually delay the release. And I think it was mainly just procedural issues that kept it from being a full edition for the longest time. The workstation moniker being one of those, they didn't want to give that up.
Mhm.
They want Fedora workstation to mean Fedora GNOME. They didn't want to change it to Fedora GNOME and Fedora KDE,
Yeah, I
which
don't
I
know what they're doing about
understand
the name.
because
I don't know if they're gonna. Are they just gonna
yeah,
keep calling it Fedora KDE? I've not heard about anything about that.
I don't know. I know that Neil is going to have to start updating like the website, doing all the marketing stuff for that. That's actually stuff that I have to do for Cosmic as well. I need
Mhm.
to get with the website people to make the website for the Cosmic spin. Um, and I don't know yet what I'm going to put on it, but I'm sure the website people have some ideas.
Mhm.
I mean, they've been around. They know how to make spin pages. So,
Mhm.
but it's exciting. And I think that KDE being an official edition is long overdue.
Yeah, one of the issues KDE's traditionally had is the way they handle their releases, because different KDE components are
Yeah.
released at different timing windows. And the nice thing about GNOME is it's 6 months, new release. Like, this is why you
Mhm.
have Ubuntu and Fedora releasing in that same window, because it's just convenient. And I
Yeah.
know I know KDE is working on cleaning up their release windows. I don't know if they've actually done it yet, but I know they wanted to move to a more like stable, this is the cycle that we're doing. It's always going to release at this window. We're going to have our components all releasing at the same window as well, and that will make things a lot easier because I believe that's one of the reasons why Rel dropped it actually, because Rel up until 7, 6 or
I think
7,
it was 7.
yeah,
Yeah.
had
I heard something about
KDE
RHEL 7 having KDE.
had KDE as an option, and I don't know when. I think they had it pretty much since the start. I don't know if there was a point they didn't have
Hmm.
it. Um, but
Yeah, it
anyway,
was.
it's just been like
Yeah.
a problem for these distros that it's fine for like an Arch, right, or a Gentoo
Hmm.
where it's a
Yeah.
rolling release model. But
OpenSUSE.
yeah. But if
Yeah.
you have I want to release in April and October because of the other distro or the other desktop we're doing, having one that's doing something different, it makes things
Yeah.
annoying.
I know that both Neil Gompa and Nate Graham,
Mm-mm.
who's actually I think you did a podcast with him
Yeah, just
recently,
the other
so
week.
probably needs no introduction. But yeah, I think they both would like to change the release schedule. And so to understand it, I think that some are on a 4-month release schedule and some are on a 6-month, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So I did see a recent change with Spectacle, like their screenshot tool, that's being changed to go on the release schedule of Plasma. And that's the same issue. They were having problems with the release cycles not being aligned, and Spectacle was either getting too ahead or too behind. So it makes sense to kind of slowly align everything to one release schedule.
Mm.
And I, since I'm not like deep in the weeds in Fedora infrastructure and everything.
Mm.
I do actually like more often releases, but I know that just doesn't make sense for a 6-month release cycle of a distro.
Yeah.
So I'd be cool with a 6-month release. I know that Cosmic, they plan on doing yearly releases, which I'm not sure how that's going to work, but that's
Yeah.
what I believe that's what Carl said, and I was like, I don't know. A lot can change in a year, and so I'm
Wait, like
thinking.
not doing point releases in it, or how does I'm
I
not
don't
sure what
know.
this.
I don't know what they mean by that, but it was at a certain talk that I watched. I wish I had the reference, but I think major releases. So
Okay.
maybe they'll do minor releases, but yeah. So what I have to be thinking about is, in between these releases, I need to be making sure that everything is up to date, and I'd rather keep a pace that's closer to upstream. I've
Mhm.
never been a fan of LTS distros and LTS everything. So I actually like how Neil manages KDE in that way.
Mhm.
They update KDE like very often, but yeah, I'll have to be thinking about that whenever Cosmic starts doing official releases. Right now, whenever there's a new alpha, I just tag it and we go.
Mhm.
And most of the time, those updates just go through without any issues.
Well, yeah, right now, like, you can't really expect anything to be stable because it's the alpha.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's a tagged release, but it's not a like they've
It's
explicitly
not a
said they're not
stable
doing it
release.
like
Yeah,
testing for these releases. They're gonna test it to make sure
right.
things build, but they're not doing like
Mhm.
full QA they would do for a full release.
Yeah, and I don't know. Back in the day, I wouldn't have even recommended using the tag releases
Mm.
because everything was changing so often, and things
Yeah.
still are. But I think we're finally getting to the point where I can recommend staying on a tagged release and using the official Fedora repos. For
Mhm.
the longest time, I was like, if you want the latest experience, go to my copper. Everything's updated daily. But nowadays, you may not really need to. We're getting to the point where everything is finally stabilizing, and they're they're getting really close, and I'm excited for them.
Yeah,
But
I want to swap to Cosmic. There's a few issues that I still have. Some of them are obviously,
mhm,
bug related, sure. That's one thing. Some of them are kind of like butting heads design issues that I
yeah,
just don't really get. I'm doing a video in a couple of days talking about some of these things where I just don't really get why you would not do this. Like the way they're handling decorations, for example.
oh yeah,
So I reported this as a bug and it got closed as like, oh, this is the way we're doing it. It's not
mhm.
it's closed as not planned. I'm not happy
I
about
think
how
I
they've
might
done it.
know what this is.
Yeah.
But go on.
So, for anyone who doesn't, if you run Firefox on KDE, it's going to have the KDE decorations. If you run OBS, it's going to have the KDE decorations. If you run a terminal, it's going to have the KDE decorations. But on Cosmic, I feel like they're handling decorations backwards. So, if a toolkit supplies decorations, which all of them do because there is a major desktop that doesn't do server-side decorations,
I wonder who
GNOME.
those people are.
Look, I'm gonna. You might not want to say. I'm gonna say it though. There's enough people at GNOME that don't like me already. So
Oh,
basically, all the major toolkits have fallback decorations because they need to. Otherwise, they're going to be like DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci doesn't have any decorations. They rely on
mhm.
server-side decorations, so it's actually impossible to use DaVinci Resolve on GNOME right now. You have to control it with bindings. Like you can't move the window. You can't even, like, I don't think you can move like super meta, the super drag. I think you actually cannot move the window. It's like really broken
Wow.
on GNOME.
Yeah. Good. Who said that?
Well, this is like it's extra bad because of DaVinci, right? Like it's
Yeah,
proprietary software to do their thing. But the point I'm
Yeah.
getting at is it doesn't have decorations. So GCK, Qt, probably most of the toolkits supply decorations as a fallback. Now, what's supposed to happen is if a desktop provides server-side decorations like Cosmic does, it's supposed to replace those decorations that are a fallback with the decorations of the desktop. But Cosmic has taken the different approach of it's only going to supply the decorations in cases where there are no decorations. So usually that's going to be for an Electron application or a terminal like Alacrity. So what you end up having happen is applications like Firefox and OBS, even though they do support server-side decorations, don't use them on Cosmic.
Yeah. Can I actually you there for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so maybe this is a little in the nitty-gritty of how XGG decoration works, but the way Cosmic implements it is actually within spec, but it's weird because the spec doesn't tell you how you should do this certain thing. So basically, clients will ideally they'll send their preference of whether they prefer client or server-side decorations. The compositor will either honor that preference or not. Which is why I also think that GNOME could totally implement XDG decoration and just refuse everything, but that wouldn't really be helpful anyways. But it's technically within spec. So if a client refuses or doesn't refuse, if a client doesn't have a preference on whether it prefers client or server-side decorations, it's up to the compositor to choose one. And most every other desktop environment chooses server-side decorations, which I also agree is, I think, the best way to do it. Cosmic chooses client-side decorations. If it doesn't have a preference, it chooses client-side. So Electron does have client-side decorations, but it prefers server-side decorations explicitly.
Sure. Okay.
And that's why it shows up as server. But stuff like Firefox and Alacrity, they don't set a preference, presumably, and so it shows up as server
Alacrity
side.
doesn't have decorations to begin with. OBS.
Oh yeah, OBS. Yeah, cute applications are like that. And I actually wanted to talk to I think David Redondo is the one who does cute Wayland stuff, but I wanted to talk to him about potentially changing it for them to prefer server-side decorations. But I ended up I have a lot of ideas and a lot of them don't really get acted on, so
Right.
I didn't end up talking to him. But I think that that is a big problem in Cosmic is cute applications look terrible.
So you would argue it's more of a upstream issue rather than an issue with Cosmic?
I think it's an issue with Cosmic, but I think that upstream could also fix the preference as well.
Sure.
I still think it's ultimately Cosmic's fault for not preferring server-side decorations, but I do think that if I had to if the ideologies of desktop environments were on like a one-line spectrum, I really think that Cosmic's kind of in between GNOME and KDE. So they prefer client-side decorations when possible, but I don't know if that's always the best option because things can look ugly, like cute. But the ideal way to fix it in lieu of that is actually to make a Qt platform abstraction for Cosmic. So Qt has like a Adwaita abstraction. Adwaita, I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think it's Adwaita. That's the way I say it, at least.
Yeah, Adwaita then. That's they have a abstraction that makes it look nice on GNOME platforms. We could actually potentially tap into that, I wonder, but that may be a good thing to do in the meantime because Qt apps again look terrible right now. But the idea would be to create a Cosmic platform for it because Qt basically has a bunch of platform abstractions for like Windows, Mac, and then for Linux they have several depending on like GNOME or anything else. The problem is no platform is being picked, or maybe like a default Linux platform is being picked for Cosmic. So I don't know how many Qt apps you've tried. OBS probably looks terrible on your Cosmic stuff.
OBS is, I think, the main one that I've used. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
there's like one. Wait, what is it? Oh,
I
Proton
know
Up
that
QT. That's the only other one for downloading new Proton versions. Proton Up QT.
Oh, is that Proton the mail app or Proton the wine abstraction layer?
It's a tool for downloading new versions of Proton, the Steam thing.
Okay, I will say that someone on Mastodon said like rip Proton once, and I was like, oh no, is Proton gone? And it was like some controversy related to Proton Mail and all that. I was like, oh, you got to clarify these things. But yeah, so until we have a Cosmic platform for that, then Qt apps just don't look good. And I actually want to in the Cosmic spin mix Qt apps and
Live,
GTK apps. Oh yeah.
Forgot about that one.
That's your main editor?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think of it? Is it good?
You know, of the options that are around, it's the best of the options. At least if we're talking open source. There's a reason why a lot of Linux YouTubers who are otherwise very, very big open source people use DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah, it's the only other one that could be seen as supported. I remember when I did YouTube back in the day, I pirated Adobe products. So yeah, Premiere Pro was my choice of editor at the time, but that would not work at all on Linux. I know that for a fact.
I know there's some people that have done some. So at certain times, you've been able to get Creative Cloud working. It has required a lot of messing around with Wine, and it's not been stable, and different versions have broken it. But it's technically been possible sometimes.
Interesting. Yeah, I know that somebody got Photoshop, like maybe CS6 or maybe the first version of Creative Cloud on there.
Oh yeah, people have definitely got an older version of Photoshop absolutely working. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a feat in of itself. Like, massive props to people who are able to do that. Did you hear that Wine just tagged their for their 10.0 stable release?
I did hear about that. I haven't looked into what's in the tagged release.
The thing I'm most excited about is the Wayland support.
Oh, wait,
it's been in.
Oh, is that coming now? I forgot about that.
Yeah. So Wine Wayland is enabled by default, but there's been a couple people who are misunderstanding what that means.
Oh, hello? Did we lose him? Did I disconnect? Wait. Who disconnected? I can't hear you, no. Is that my side? Wait, I don't even know. Is it? Tell me it's not Discord that's breaking. Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, that was probably my router. American internet sucks.
No, my video also started dropping in quality as well, so I don't know what that was.
Interesting. Well, I don't know. So we were talking about Wine Wayland.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a misconception that I've seen in Reddit right now where people are like, oh, it's on by default. You'll be using it just out of the box. But if you have X Wayland, it'll default to X11 still because that has way more support. So if you want to actually use Wine Wayland, you have to unset the display variable whenever you call Wine.
Right.
So, and I actually tinkered with it today a little bit and already found some bugs. Most of them were reported, but I ended up reporting one that I hadn't seen to Wine. There's a big issue with Electron applications. They just show up as a black screen.
Oh.
I was like, what Windows app should I try with Wine? Because most of the time I'm running Wine through Proton. I'm like, I don't know of any Windows applications I want to try. So I downloaded Spotify and was like, all right, let's try this. Black box. It installed and then a black box.
That's fun.
Yeah, so apparently Wine Wayland doesn't have support for multi-threaded rendering yet. And I assume that's a big deal. So it's definitely not fully ready for prime time. I wish it was, because it's been
Did we lose you again? What the hell's happening? Oh, this is a great episode. I love this.
Technical difficulties. Okay, you're on my phone now.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, whatever works. Sorry about my internet. Anywho, you can hear me, right?
I can hear you just fine. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not ready for prime time at all. Well, I guess not at all. If you're just playing games, I think Vulkan and OpenGL is supported. So, but for like actual desktop applications, it's definitely not ready. I even tried like something as simple as Wine Notepad, and I found that touchpad scrolling still doesn't work. Regular mouse scrolling works, but touchpad does not. So I don't know. But it's been a long time like want of mine to try out a Wayland only desktop, like removing X Wayland. And in order to do that, the two things that I really need to be Wayland are Chromium and Wine. Those are the last two holdouts, I feel like, for Wayland support.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what I have. I reckon it's pretty much the same for me as well, because Firefox has Wayland support, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's had Wayland support since like maybe April of last year, I think.
And it's enabled by default now, yeah.
Yes. And that's pretty nice. Chromium has Wayland support, but it's really borked. You can enable it as a flag. You can do the same with Electron apps, but I wouldn't recommend it for a while. There are just various different issues. I did notice recently something interesting that Element. Do you get on Matrix at all?
Not that much. I've used it a bit though.
You should. I kind of just lurk in every development discussion there ever is. I'm in like the GNOME chats. I'm in the KDE chats. I'm in Cosmic chats. Like, it's kind of fun to just lurk and see what's going on. But the Element app is Electron based, and I noticed that the Flatpak actually runs on Wayland by default. Because I was trying, the way I try a Wayland complete desktop is because I'm running on an Atomic distro, I just create an overlay that removes X Wayland entirely, and then I try running KDE, and I try opening apps and see if they'll open. And Element opened just fine, and I was like, interesting. And it worked perfectly under Wayland. So if that's some hope for Chromium Wayland support, then that's that would be great.
Now that I think about it, there is one other app that I do run under X11. Not because I need to, but because there's not really a good way to get around the problem otherwise. OBS, I run under X Wayland.
Interesting.
So on KDE, they have the option to... what is it? What is the option called? Legacy X11 app support, where you can pass through keybinds to a window you're not focused on. So I don't want to I want to be doing stuff on my browser or going through my terminal and then press hotkeys to change, when my camera is on the screen. That is not something you can do without being focused on the window in Wayland without, doing it through X Wayland. Right now, Cosmic doesn't have a way to do this, so Cosmic's a little bit annoying for me when I'm trying to record a video.
You can't use your hotkeys like you were used to. Is OBS planning on implementing global shortcuts eventually?
So my understanding is the global shortcut thing is like this. It's in this weird, purgatory state where I think the portals now have a partial solution. I don't think they have a full UI implementation though, and then OBS doesn't have an implementation of it either. So I'm pretty sure the main portal project has it, but I don't know of any of the desktop portals that have like an actual GUI for it.
Yeah. Maybe
So-
it's kind of a chicken and egg problem where,
Yeah,
like, you
yeah.
know, desktops are waiting on apps to support it, apps are waiting on desktops, and it never gets implemented.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of lucky that my workflow has never been hampered by Wayland. In fact, when I first started Linux, I tried Linux Mint like very briefly,
Mhm.
and I was like, why is multi-monitor support not good? And it's like, oh, you should use a Wayland desktop. And I was like, okay. And then I stuck with it. Like, I haven't needed anything from X11 ever.
Mhm.
And you know, I'm able-bodied person and I don't need accessibility. It's very important, and it's something that needs to be done right.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
I'm lucky that I've never had to be affected by the shortcomings of Wayland. At least, yeah.
Yeah. The Arch Linux subreddit recently did a survey of, like, you know, various things about Linux, and
Mhm.
one of the things that I think is interesting, and I've done surveys in my community as well that had very similar results, 80% of people said they preferred a Wayland session at this point.
Interesting. And being somebody who doesn't have like a history of Linux, and I'm very new to Linux, in my head, I would expect that number to be higher. Like most people to be running Wayland, obviously, but like maybe closer to 90%. Uh, but it's interesting. I assume those 20% are probably people who have been on Linux forever and they have their workflows and they've used all of the XIs, Xprop, whatever other X tools,
Mhm.
and they don't know how to do the same thing in Wayland, or there isn't even an equivalent. So, I
Well,
mean, I
keep in
don't
mind it's
blame
also
them.
Arch, right? So there's going to be a lot of people who are like DWM users or
Mhm.
i3 users, and they've got, you know, you can't replicate DWM on Wayland. Like, it's a very
Yeah.
specific X experience.
So enlighten me on DWM because I don't know a lot about the more niche desktop experiences.
So DWM is a tiling window manager, and it's part of the Suckless suite of software. And one of the things that Suckless makes a big deal out of, which is so stupid, is you don't configure the software to configure things, you patch it. So there's giant list of patches that are available that you can apply to the code, and it always ends up creating, you know, impossible to maintain personal builds, and changing anything is a nightmare. But people who like it really like it. And of course, there are people who are on things like XFCE, or they're on
Mhm.
Cinnamon, or Budgie, which is
Yeah.
getting very close to full Wayland. Cinnamon, they have
Yeah.
Wayland, but it's like it's very experimental.
Yeah.
So there's obviously
I'm
those
interested.
people.
Yeah, but both Budgie and Cinnamon seem like interesting projects to me.
Mhm.
I mean, they both have their roots in GTK, but they also have the traditional desktop layout, and I think my interest has always been in traditional desktop layouts, but
Mhm.
keeping a workflow similar to GNOME's.
Mhm,
I like using workspaces and stuff like that. Uh, so stuff like Cosmic and uh, Cinnamon and Budgie are interesting to me.
mhm.
I don't know if Cinnamon has workspaces. I think they do. I
Yeah,
really
pretty
used
much
it for like,
pretty much everything on Linux has workspaces at this point.
yeah, I used it for less than a day. I very quickly went to Fedora.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah, I wouldn't change that for the world. I like Fedora. I know that Arch is cool and all, but I feel like Fedora is a great starter distro. I would recommend it over stuff like Ubuntu. Just I think that the overall Linux desktops are moving towards the stuff that Fedora is moving towards, like
Mhm.
Flatpaks, and I don't think that snaps really have a place in the future of Linux.
That's
Uh,
another thing that came out of that survey. It was you look at the people that like the AUR, and it's like, oh, who prefers the AUR? It's like, you know, most people on Arch prefer the AUR. Then it's like some people use it a
Mhm.
little bit, and the graph is mirrored for snaps. Most people don't want snaps anywhere near their system. I think
Oh yeah.
I think the thing that's really like annoyed people about snaps in Ubuntu is when Ubuntu's like silently replacing Debian packages with snaps. Like they do this with Firefox.
Oh yeah.
Like
They did do that with Firefox. Yeah.
if I use
Um,
apt to install it, I want the apt package.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's it's an anti-pattern. Like if you're calling from a specific program, you want to install from that program. That's confusing to the user. They'll think that they installed the app package and then start barking up the wrong tree if there's an issue. It's just not something I really understand why Ubuntu did. I actually did try out Ubuntu Server recently because I wanted to set up a Nextcloud instance, and I ran into snaps and I realized why people don't like it. It it showed up as an install option. It's like, do you want to install the Nextcloud snap? It had a bunch of other options, but I was like, yes. And I very quickly just didn't like it. But I assume there are people who are used to that workflow, but I immediately went back to like something I'm familiar with. I did Fedora server. Not a lot of people use Fedora server. It seems like people use CentOS. There's a lot of other server-based distributions there's a lot of other server RPM-based distributions out there.
Well, when it comes to silently installing snaps, there's actually kind of a problem that exists on Fedora as well, and this is a very recent discussion with Fedora Flatpak. There's some discussion right now about how that should be handled, whether it should be enabled by default, should it be taking priority over the regular Flatpak? Because my understanding is Fedora's obviously they've gotten complaints from like the Bottles developers, but also complaints from OBS as well. And if the Fedora Flatpak has issues that don't exist in the official Flatpak from the developers, it's like the developers aren't going to deal with that problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably have some hot takes when it comes to like a lot of Fedora packagers wouldn't share the opinions that I do, but I actually think I align more with the Bottles developers on the side of the conversation. I don't think that they should make it explicitly hard to package it, but I understand why they did it. They were dealing with problems and they have one distribution method that they want to support, and I do think that Flatpaks are great in that way, that they can encourage companies and also just open source developers to package their things intentionally instead of letting somebody else package it for them. And that's something that we see on every other platform. And maybe because I've been on Windows and like iOS and stuff like that my whole life, that's just what I feel like I'm used to. I feel like it makes sense as a developer to package your stuff once and do it yourself, and I actually developed I was trying to develop like a project where you could like run Flatpaks transiently, like you don't have to install them, and I wanted to package that for like Fedora, and I ran into some of the same packaging issues that I see a lot of other people do. First of all, Fedora like package reviews are pretty strict, and their guidelines surrounding Rust specifically are kind of weird. It's not weird if you look at it in the context of like C and C++, because they're used to packaging all their libraries separately, but they want you to package each individual library crate as a separate RPM. I've never really understood that, and I don't personally agree with that decision. Obviously, I'm not the one doing the majority of the Rust work in Fedora, so I don't really care much. But when it came to Cosmic, I don't think we would have been able to package it if it wasn't for an exception to that rule where they allowed us to vendor the dependencies. Because there's some packages like Smithy, for example, that haven't had a release in like 4 years. Well, it may be 4 years, maybe it was 2 years. I forget. Years. It's been years. And they probably won't tag another release for a long time because it's constantly changing. So it doesn't make sense to package it separately. It makes sense to vendor it. And it was kind of a point of contention for just a little bit until the Fedora side of things started realizing that it would literally be impossible to package Cosmic without this exception. So I'm very thankful that exception was made. But normally you're supposed to package each individual crate separately.
Right.
But yeah, packaging for applications, like if I wanted to package my Rust application, I would have to make sure that all of the crates are in the Fedora repos and that I'm matching the versions that are in the Fedora repos so that I can avoid API problems, you know? So it's a pain, it's a chore, and I understand why Flatpak is so enticing for application developers.
Mhm.
And if I made an app and somebody made like an RPM that only half worked, I'd understand why.
Right.
I understand the bottles developers' perspective there.
So, whilst we're on the topic of back on Fedora, let's talk a bit about the actual creation of the spin itself, because we haven't really talked about that
Yes.
much.
Yeah.
Well, I guess why did you want to make a spin? Rather, like you could have just like released the packages, and that be the end of it. Why did you want to go all the way and actually make a spin?
So personally, I think when I want to make changes in like projects and stuff, I want them to end up being something that everyone can really benefit from.
Mhm.
And I think that making a spin allows all of this work to reach more people. And since a lot of other people also want to have a Cosmic desktop on Fedora, it just kind of made sense to put in the extra work to make it a spin. But that involved, of course, I think where we were last at, I had created the packages. From there, they had to go through package reviews, and as I mentioned, they're pretty rigorous. So that took probably like a month or two once we started doing that. And then after we got everything in there, of course, it came around time to make the change proposal in December.
Mhm.
There was kind of a period of time where we were just releasing alpha versions in the official Fedora repos. Like
Mhm.
people could make their own like custom spin, I guess, if they wanted to just install the packages themselves. But I think that it makes sense once they're officially in the Fedora repos to just make a spin at
Mhm.
that point. I mean, there's spins for basically every desktop on Fedora, so might as well.
So if somebody wanted to make a spin, let's say some new desktop came out, or there's some desktop right now that doesn't actually have a spin, what was the actual process that you needed to go through there? What did you actually need to do in Fedora to make this happen?
Okay, so the first step, you have to have packages
Mhm.
for your spin. Everything that is needed to run your specific spin needs to be in an RPM package. I would start by using Copper.
Mhm.
That's their custom build system slash external package repository, and it's free to make an account. It's free to start setting things up. If you
Mhm.
don't know anything about RPM packaging, it's also a great like testing ground. I oftentimes people will say to run things locally, and you can, but I found it easier to just run in the copper, and then if something fails, the build logs are great. Just find out what went wrong.
Mhm.
Uh, so learn how to make RPM packages. There's some great documentation in the Fedora docs about that. Um, Once you have those packages, you'll need to submit them for review. You have to create a Fedora account system account. You have to accept their like FPCA, I think it is, Fedora Project Contributor Agreement.
Mhm.
Uh, from there, you go to their Bugzilla, and there's like a template for requesting a package. It gives you like slots for the package name, package description, your account system username, and then you have to put in the URL of the spec file and the RPM.
Mhm.
At that point, someone will get back to you with like action items, and there will probably be a lot to start because there's a lot of review items. And if you want to make their lives easier, you should probably look at the package guidelines before submitting it as well,
Mhm.
because they'll end up just being like, "Did you even read this?" But but yeah, there's a whole ton of stuff to be thinking about, stuff that I would never have thought about, and probably can't procure off the top of my head just because it's been so long. I
Sure.
did this back in June, but each package will be reviewed individually, and depending on how many packages you have for your desktop environment for your spin, it could take a long time. For instance, Cosmic at the start had like 21 packages. It has like 25 now, but
Mhm.
it was easier after the fact to add packages. Like we packaged Cosmic Player recently, Cosmic Wallpapers, stuff like that. But yeah, so once things are reviewed, you have your packages done. it comes time to where you need to actually request the spin. Change proposals are on a deadline, so you want to make sure you get that in before the version you want your spin to be in. The Fedora 42 one, for example, was in like December. I think it was December 18th. So you submit the proposal. I think at that point, you may want to reach out to somebody in Fedora and let them know your intent, just so that they can help you out. For me, Neil Gompo was a huge help. He kind of was my consultant through the whole thing. Like he was like, all right, here are the next steps. Here's what you need to do. And that made it really easy for me to keep track of what's going on, because there's a lot of things at that point that you need to be aware of. There's like live sys scripts, which I don't actually know what those do, but I made a PR for that. Because the scripts are like per desktop environment or per spin. And then to adapt it to Cosmic, all I had to do was just change a couple of things from like the KDE one, for example. And you'll find that there's a lot of those kinds of things where you have to make PRs in different repos for like live sys scripts, Kiwi descriptions. Kiwi, I think, is like an image builder tool that they have. But yeah, then they'll use that stuff to actually start building ISOs of the spin. So that's actually where I'm at now. We recently got our first official Cosmic ISOs in Rawhide. So if you wanted to download them, you just go to Rawhide, and yeah. So we have the official Fedora Cosmic spin now in Rawhide. We don't have an atomic image yet. That's another thing that needs consideration. I'm working with Timothy Ravier. I probably butchered that name. I'm American, sorry. But he works on all of the atomic images, but he particularly loves Kinoite. So he's big on Kinoite, but he's helping out with the Cosmic Atomic image, which is what I'll personally be using, and I'm very excited about. From there, you need to talk with marketing to figure out how you're going to market the spin. Need to talk to the website people, so you have your website for the spin. You need to make sure that the installation media works. So they don't use Calamares, they use Anaconda. That's right. You have to make sure Anaconda works with your spin, because basically the live image will spawn your desktop environment of choice, and it'll show Anaconda in like a maximized window. There's actually an issue in Cosmic Comp right now where that window doesn't maximize for some reason, but that's like a minor detail. Apparently the maximize request is not being honored. But yeah, it's like pretty soon I'm going to have to get like an ISO to actually start dogfooding that for myself, making sure that everything is stable and people can install from that media. I think Neil, just out of curiosity, did an initial install, and he said things were working pretty good. But yeah, from there. Oh, my phone's at low battery now. Oh well, I'll get that in just a second. So from there, I think honestly, just making sure you're responding to bug reports and stuff, and then once the official spin comes out, making sure everything's stable and continuing to maintain it, obviously. So yeah, that's kind of like from zero to hero for a spin.
So what about the SIG then? Like, where does that sit in this?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part. Yeah, you'll want to near the start of your intent to make packages, you'll probably want to make a special interest group. Sorry, I'm grabbing my charger. Yeah, so Fedora SIGs are pretty easy to create. You just explain that there's a new desktop environment, or you want to package this desktop environment, and you want to create a group of people similarly interested in that goal. And from there, most of the time it'll just be approved. I don't actually know if there are many SIGs that aren't. Probably the ones where it doesn't seem like people would maintain it.
Right.
But sorry, trying to find the plug here.
So good.
So making a SIG is definitely important. It's I would put that be either, if you want help building the packages, you probably want to put that step before you make the packages themselves. So Yeah, that's what I ended up doing, but I still ended up doing the packages all by myself. And now at this point, I have so much like automated infrastructure surrounding it that if people want to help, I'm going to have to start documenting things. And that's another goal. You got to document your processes,
Mhm.
especially when you get close to spin release. You also want to document like you want desktop environment specific documentation.
Mhm.
Because I believe there's KDE docs, there's GNOME docs, and probably for other spins as well.
Mhm.
But just common use cases, what you'd want to do, and how to solve problems.
Mhm. So,
There's actually some.
go-
Oh, sorry, go on.
no,
There was
I was
somebody
going
who
to
volunteered
diverge
to
to
do
something
some
else.
documentation. Yeah. No, go on.
I was going to say, what sort of support have you received, like, for doing this? Like, how many people, like, how much, um, what, how many people are involved in the SIG and just general interest in the project?
Yeah. So the biggest involvement has been me and Neil.
Mhm.
That's why it was just us two on the change proposal.
Mhm.
But there have been a couple of people have done significant work on like some of the build scripts.
Mhm.
I know that Wheeze Noakes, I don't know if you've seen him around the Cosmic repos as well.
Maybe seen the name
He
once or twice. I doesn't ring a
he's
bell
an
though.
occasional contributor to Cosmic,
Mhm.
and I mean, he's a Fedora user, so I guess he wanted to contribute some to the automated build scripts.
Mhm.
And so I gave him SIG access, so he's a member of the SIG. Uh, the guy who heads the Rust SIG, his name is Fabio Valentini. He's been a
Mm.
huge help, especially with Rust related questions. He developed a tool called Rust to RPM that helps you at least get started with the packages. But I had to do some modifications because that tool assumes that you're not vendoring your dependencies, and
Mhm.
I had that exception and all that. Um, where I was able to vendor. But yeah, so he's been a huge help. And then there was that guy who wants to do documentation. I actually don't know the status on that, but other than that, it's just been people generally interested in Cosmic and bringing up issues when they exist and all that. So yeah,
Sweet.
that's the thing.
So it sounds like things are
Most of it,
coming along pretty well then.
yeah, things are coming along well. I think that really the biggest question is when will Cosmic release
Mm.
like stable. I think that's important for us at Fedora to know because we like to align our release schedules with releases of spins, and I would hope that their release schedule closely aligns with ours. Obviously, it's not a release blocker. This isn't a very important spin yet, but I hope that they release maybe close to April. Uh,
Beta, I look, you'll have beta by
yeah,
then, hopefully.
yeah. I really don't know. Like if they're planning on making Alpha 6, which word on the street is that they are,
Mhm.
I don't know. They're not going to hit their March deadline, I'm sure of
No,
that. Um,
no.
but I can say that because I don't work at System 76. They're going to try to keep they're trying to be optimistic about their release schedule,
Well, I
but
asked
I
Jeremy about it
imagine
on Mastodon. He's like, "We're gonna do it. We're pretty much gonna do an Alpha 6," and
yeah.
that's that. He wasn't gonna confirm anything else after that.
Yeah, I mean they've worked so hard. Like all credit to them. They're great at what they do. It's just a lot to bring up an entire desktop environment.
Yeah.
So and I I've massive respect for them putting all that work anyways into it.
Mhm.
They're a small company that does hardware. As much as they say that their customers wanted a certain experience, so they made it. Like they didn't have to do this necessarily.
Yeah.
Like they could have had a similar experience somewhere else with modifications, but I don't know. It sounded like that was unenticing for them,
Mhm.
and I
Well,
think
for the
some of
longest
that's
time, they
just
had Pop Shell.
ideological. Yeah, they did, and they ended up having a falling out with GNOME, of course.
Yeah.
That was before my time, but I remember hearing chatter about it in the
That was
modern day
that was a
in
fun
GNOME
time. I
chats.
enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's another fun thing about being on Matrix
Mhm.
is you get to see like inner development chats and seeing how GNOME people and KDE people like converse and talk about issues and stuff. And I've seen GNOME people like casually talk about the System 76 stuff. I think they're a lot more mellow about it now. Like they're fine, but I know that it seemed to be pretty heated back in the day.
Yeah. Well, most people, it's just a thing that happened, right? I can imagine the people who are directly involved with it might still hold some grudges.
Yeah, there's very much an ideological dispute there between GNOME and System 76. But I guess appreciate System 76 for being like, well, we'll make our own thing,
Yeah.
GNOME is not offering what we need, so we'll make our own thing. And we're going to make it open source and all the good stuff that we appreciate about the software we currently use. And I like that because it provides insulation for the project as well. It means that if something were to happen to System 76, at the very least, someone can pick it up. But it would probably take a lot of work to do so. But at least it's not like, something that could be hoarded.
Right.
Like,
right.
oh, we're going to take the source down and all that. So I appreciate GPL for that reason.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that System 76 has done. And like, obviously, it's still not done yet, but
yes,
I think that I think Carl needs to stop mentioning dates. Like that's all I need to say.
Yeah.
The same thing with the GIMP developers. Stop saying dates. Stop it.
Yeah.
You've clearly shown you are like System 76. They've just made one date. It's clearly going to be wrong. But like the GIMP people need to stop talking about dates. Like they clearly have no ability to judge when things are going to happen.
Yeah, they do what I do at work. I want to be optimistic, and I'm like, I think I can get this thing done like here. And then it always ends up that there's issues, and that's just the nature of software. But yeah, someone should take his mic away and tell him to stop doing dates.
Like after the third, fourth, fifth delay, like just stop saying dates. Just it'll be done when it's done.
It'll be done when it's done. Yes, and that's the GIMP. The GIMP way. That's going to be the Cosmic way. I think.
GIMP has an RC, if they push, so they're on their way.
They're getting there. Do you use GIMP for your thumbnails, by the way?
I've been using the GIMP 3. I've been using it since like maybe 6 months ago, before the RC happened.
Nice, yeah. Do you think it's stable and ready then?
Yeah. There's a couple little bugs. The undo system is a little bit weird. Like if you copy text in, the text you copied in isn't part of the undo, so if you try to undo it, it undoes like the last act, like different action. So that's a bit weird.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, but global history's got to be nice.
Yeah, but it's mostly there. I remember early on when I tried it, it just especially running it on Wayland, it was just a little bit rough, very crashy. No, it's pretty much solid at this point.
That's great. Yeah. I've never really used GIMP, but I guess nowadays I don't really have a reason to. I remember when I was making thumbnails back in my YouTube days, I used a program on Windows called Paint.net. I don't know if you've heard of it. I don't know if it's probably Windows only, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, because, I mean, especially if it's old.net, old.net wasn't as cross-platform.
I mean, they like had people got it working on Wine, but yeah, it's Windows only.
Yeah. I also pirated Photoshop at one point, but I didn't really use it a whole ton. But yeah, I don't know. YouTube was fun for a time.
Well, I think we've pretty much hit on everything I wanted to talk about, so I reckon that's as good a place as any to end off.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So,
I mean, thank you for... Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on to what you're saying. I'll do what I was saying in a second.
I mean, I was going to say thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun, and I always love a chance to nerd out about Linux and Cosmic and all that stuff, so...
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure.
Much appreciated. Yeah. And I also love listening to your podcasts. I mean,
thank you.
Whenever I'm driving between here and my home in Texas, it's nice noise for the drive, and it's fun to hear all sorts of different perspectives on all things Linux. So, yeah, I appreciate it.
So, if people want to get involved in the Fedora COSMIC SIG or anything else, if they want to get involved in Cosmic itself, or anything you want to direct people to. Give them places they can go.
Sure. So I always recommend building things for upstream. If you have a feature that you really want, I think the best way to take action is to make it come to life yourself. But also, if you're not a programmer and you want to do stuff like documentation, that's something that they very much need over time as their stuff gets more complex. Be nice to have build documentation, explanations of what all the subrepos do and all that stuff. And if you want to get involved in Fedora COSMIC, we also need that same kind of stuff. And we have a matrix group for that. And I don't know if you do links in the description for podcast guests, but we can link that in the description. And I would say definitely join, even if you just want to lurk, because I'm a huge lurker in all sorts of matrix chats. That is totally fine. You don't have to say anything. You can just watch what's going on. But yeah.
Awesome. Nothing else you want to mention?
Try out the Cosmic spin when it comes out. And report bugs. We definitely need bug reporters and all that stuff. And me and a couple others are working on making the spin as stable as possible. So, yeah.
We mentioned it's available in Rawhide now, so I might have to...
It's available in Rawhide.
I might have to go track that down and give that a try on stream.
Yes, and if it sucks, let me know. If the experience is terrible, I want to know. And if the experience is good, I guess I also want to know that too.
Awesome.
So,
Okay, as for me, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. I've got the gaming channel. I stream over there twice a week. Right now, I'll be playing through... I'll probably be done with my side, so I'll probably be playing Ender Magnolia and Nine Souls.
Nine Souls? Nine Souls?
Yeah, I'm streaming Nine Souls. It's very good.
Yeah, I'm almost done with that game. I love it. It's great.
I love Metroidvania games.
So fun. Yeah, me too. I'm waiting for Silk Song.
Yeah, one day it'll happen. Maybe I'll have to go find the look, Silk Song is Team Cherry, they're like in Adelaide, so I'll like find their studio and I'll knock on their door. Go bash their door down.
Yeah, I wonder how many fans they get all the time for that. But yeah.
Actually, just random thing about Silk Song. When Hollow Knight was I think it was when it was first demoed, they demoed it at the really small like anime and video game con that we have in my state. I was like, I wasn't even like involved in I didn't really care too much about gaming at that point, so I didn't actually play it. This is something I learned like way after the fact, but like that would have been so cool to play it when that happened.
Yeah, like pre-release and everything. That would be so cool. I don't know, maybe they probably won't do that again, but could always hope. They're much bigger now.
I think they'll do PAX next time rather than some little con.
Oh yeah.
So I've got my React channel where I upload stream clips as well. That is Brody Robertson Reacts. And if you're watching the video version of this, you can find the audio version on YouTube you can find the audio version on Spotify at Tech of a T. I have an RSS feed as well. If you want to find the video version, it is on YouTube at Tech Over T. Yeah. We have fun episodes. We have KDE people. We have sex toy developers. We have Cosmic spin people. Check it out.
Whole
it's
gamut.
fun. Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you the final word. What do you want to say? How do you want to sign us off?
Ooh, and dude, I always know you do this to people, and I still don't know.
It's fun.
Try Cosmic.
Yep. Fair enough.